Morning, everyone. Evening, everyone. So my name is Locke. I'm the founder and director of AdRAM. So we do a lot of IT projects as well as AEC projects, and we specialize in information architecture as well as digital transformation initiatives uh, from either the government or the private sector. Yeah. So that's a brief introduction of myself. So what I want to share with you today is a success story that we had with JTC. JTC being a statutory board under the Singapore's Ministry of Trade and Industry. Uh, they um, they develop a lot of industrial estates, business parks, as well as specialized hubs. So as of 2024, they oversee a portfolio of over 7,000 buildings. And this portfolio is growing every year by 20 to 30 projects every year. So for them, information management of BIM models is critical to their success. If they do not address it at a strategic level, the information management can just get worse and worse. So having realized the criticality of that, what they've come up with is that information is a common currency across the entire project lifecycle. And I'm sure you've seen different versions of this where information starts off at project initiation and flows all the way through design, construction, and ends up at facilities management. But to be able to realize that information is very, very critical to their business operations, they had to come up with a standardized way of being able to transfer the information from one stage to another. Bearing in mind, they have 7,000 buildings under their portfolio. So it's going to just get more and more. Yeah. So their business challenge is how can they preserve the information passed on from one stage to another, right? Across multiple projects, right? They don't do just 1 or 2 projects a year. They do 20, 30 projects a year. And that would mean a larger group of BIM professionals within the organization itself, being able to review, check, and validate the information that's being passed from one stage to another. All at the same time, the information is developed using various software, whether it's ArchiCAD or Revit, different authoring tools, different platforms to review those information, and spanning across multiple years. Bearing in mind, JTC is a statutory board, so their existence is pretty much almost perpetual, right? So how do they ensure all this is being met? So at the very beginning, the first step would be, like Clive has said, the owner has to take ownership of the information itself. And not just to say that they are the owner and they just want to make sure that information is correct, but really taking ownership and driving all the changes that is required throughout the supply chain, throughout the project. And second is to implement open standards. So if you have various software, you're kind of dependent on that software alone. And being government, they are not allowed to pick and choose which software is the preferred one. So they rely heavily on open standards. Third one is to simplify and automate. With so many projects coming in across the entire year, it is essential, super essential actually, to simplify everything. If there are challenges in terms of custom scripts and all that, it will be very, very difficult to manage. And lastly, of course, continuous improvement, right? I'll take you through one by one. So the first step of taking ownership of the information is JTC has over 400 plus families in the things that is required to be in the model. Yeah, and that comes to about 2,000 plus objects. And the parameters that we initially saw in the Excel spreadsheet was over 11,000 rows. So it is not humanly possible to go through that kind of level of detail, level of information required. So it is actually very daunting to actually manage that. So in 2021, the MCR model content requirements was developed to standardize all the requirements across all the projects, and it was in the Excel form. And over the years from 2021 to 2023, they evaluated the use case to use Plannerly to improve and automate certain aspects of the process. And from there, after adopting Plannerly as the mainstay of information checking, they proceeded to enhance that information, that model content requirement, with the IFC SG, which is the Singapore version of the ISC implementation, as well as to improve on their existing MCR, which is MCR 2.0 moving forward. And the future MCR would include infrastructure projects as well. Yeah. So this is what we meant by really driving the business owners, the senior leadership, really driving changes as well as improvements throughout what is required in the information. And once they have control of that, then at least information that's passed down from one stage to another, there is some level of guarantee that it's always consistent. So the second one is they do adopt as well as share their success stories with the open platform. We had a Building Smart Summit earlier in March, and they were actually speaking on the event. So they were advocating the use of open IFC, and they were really pushing all the industry players, from consultants, contractors, and all that, to really adopt and improve on using open standards. This would actually allow JTC to keep that information that's being produced for a longer period of time. Yeah. So we're moving on to the third point, which is to simplify and automate. So as I mentioned, there's 20-30 projects every year. So it's very important to have consistent methods to simplify and automate information management checking. So before Plannerly, they would have an MCR spec, which is in Excel format and about 11,000 rows. And JTC would define that. And they would pass it on to the consultants, who would take the MCR specs and create their own schedules in Excel spreadsheet and come up with custom scripts, which is either Dynamo or maybe some third-party plugins in Revit, etc. And when they run that, they would have an MCR report from the consultant. Now imagine this is one consultant, and now you have 20-30 projects. That means you have 20 to 30 different Excel spreadsheets, different versions. So the complexity just adds on to it. Now, one of the complexities of custom script is you're really reliant on that hero that created that custom script. And if the custom developer, moved on to another company, then changes to the custom scripts become limited. Okay? So when the MCR report is created, they have to pass it on to JTC. And JTC have to confirm that this report, the consultant's report, actually tallies with what they find, right? You can't just take, the report from the consultant and just accept it as is, right? So there in itself has got a lot of multiple points of failures. There's a lot of implicit trust that, okay, I think you guys know what you're doing. The report looks okay, and we hope it's okay, right? Like what Clive mentioned just now. So it's actually very hard to track the true status of the MCR with the traditional method. So we introduced Plannerly, where we define the MCR specs at the beginning. All the consultants will use Plannerly to check the compliance of the IFC model with the model content requirements. And they can do joint reviews with the JTC and come up with progressive reports on a weekly basis now. So previously, it would take weeks before even one cycle of the information management is checked. Now it's down to within 2 weeks. That means they would run a report every 2 weeks, and it doesn't impact their resources. Yeah. So there's no rework. There's reduced steps in terms of producing reports. There's no point of failures. And they can always go back to the different versions of the information that was uploaded and submitted. So in a different diagram, you can see that all the project teams, the 20-30 projects every year, they would submit information to JTC using different formats in different platforms. And this would put a strain on JTC being able to review it in a timely manner. Yeah. And everything is happening at lightning speed nowadays. So there really is a need for a better way to do this. So we've simplified it using Plannerly, where JTC can do more with less resources. They can now focus not just on the process, which is your custom script okay? Because I noticed that this is right this week and it was wrong last week. You know, they took away the effort to check the process to actually checking the results, and they can move on with other more priority things. Yeah. So how does it actually simplify and automate? So these are some screenshots from Plannerly. Within Plannerly, it's very clear what is required to be modeled, what information and what format is required, who is responsible to model it, when it should be modeled, how to model, different checklists is required, any attachments, as well as communications of back and forth between consultant and owner. Yeah. So how they would check with Plannerly would be the consultants would upload the model, either directly upload or using ACC, and the system generates the compliance report almost within 2 to 3 minutes. I'm not sure whether you can see the percentages here, but it's pretty easy for laymen or even project managers to actually see that how much of the information complies to the MCR. And if BIM managers and BIM coordinators need to zoom into those specifics, they can go down to the element level to see which elements are not complying to the information requirements. So it's much quicker and much easier to do this process instead of running Dynamo scripts, as well as running plugins and then printing out Excels or printing out Word documents to say that information is compliant. Yep. Okay, here is just a deep dive into the numbers. So rate would mean that the parameter does not exist and the value does not exist. Yellow means the parameter is there, but the value is wrong. And green means the parameter exists and the value is correct. So all these are all predefined within Plannerly itself. So it's defined once across all the projects throughout the next few years until the new MCR comes along. So that itself, that rule base itself is very important because it sets the baseline checking standard for all the projects moving forward. And here we see the ability for Plannerly to do a track and trace as well as transparency. So every version that is uploaded into Plannerly has a version number. And what JTC is doing is they do fortnightly upload of the model and let the system run the information checking. Yeah. So, so in terms of how they do continuous improvement, so what they have is the MCR training. And what that really means is there's a monthly training that we conduct with JTC throughout for all their supply chain, for all their projects. And it's done on a monthly basis where it's kind of like a clinic where users come in, they learn about how to use the system, they get onboarded on how to use the system. And then we have regular follow-ups after that. Yeah. Then they have the execution plan review, and they standardize all the workflows and templates, and they upload it into Plannerly for distribution, as well as easy links as to where to find these templates and workflows. There is also the two-tier checking system, meaning to say that the checks are done on a fortnightly basis in Plannerly first, before submitting into the formal platform during key milestones. So nothing is rushed up to the last minute. Project managers from the owner as well as the consultants or contractors can check the progress on a periodical basis just before submission. Yeah? And they also conduct regular IDD review meetings. And in terms of what were the real critical success factors having gone through the project over since 2023, the first one is to actually standardize the BIM project processes across all the projects. And that's quite daunting because if you have 20, 30 projects that's running with different consultants, each consultant bringing in their own workflows and saying their world class and they have this kind of workflow, there is a real need for actually streamlining all that and standardizing it from the owner's perspective. Yeah? And the owner actually drives this standardization. There's also a clear governance structure for BIM implementation. So they don't just focus on processes of, how do you check and, please submit your 3D models for checking. And, it's not ad hoc in terms of how they check. It's all structured and all standardized. Yeah? They integrate the MCR with the workflows. So instead of the MCR being just an Excel spreadsheet, where some BIM coordinator or BIM modeler actually has to process that Excel spreadsheet on its own, and that's just what one consultant. You might have it downstream at different subcontractors who have to interpret the Excel spreadsheet differently. So it's all, the MCR is all standardized within the Finally platform, right? So it's all very consistent. There's only one version of the MCR and everybody is aware of it. There's also a collaborative approach with industry partners and stakeholders. And this is actually very important because on a monthly basis, when we onboard different contractors and consultants into Plannerly, we actually collaborate with them to understand how Plannerly may impact their project or may not impact the project, and in what way it will help improve their processes as well. Yeah. So my presentation is actually very short as well as concise, I guess. I hope everything is clear. You guys can reach out to me in the speakers room later or during the panel discussion. So that's the end of my presentation. This is my contact info. Yeah, if you'd like to reach out to me or like to know more about our success stories.